So we'll continue with this topic, budgeting practice in Malaysian government. Okay, I think a bit more, just a few highlights. I think in previous class we talked about the flow, right? The process that take place from to estimate the next year budget. It will start in during the current year. So it take like a year to prepare the budget before at the end of the December it will be approved. And then we also discuss on the framework. So what will be the emphasis of the current government? Okay, through the budget circulars provided by the Treasury. Okay, these are examples. In the case of 2019, so what will be the emphasis? I think some of it, of course, these are before the COVID. And so I think like SMEs, entrepreneurial development, well-being of rakyat. So these are some common issues. Okay, I think we discussed this as well on the technical side. Okay, where the need to develop performance measures and others. Okay, so before we move on, any questions? Any question? Either in chat or you can ask. Okay, so no question. Let me proceed. Okay, these are examples. Budget, okay, 2018, 2019. Okay, it's an example, just and then we'll also look at 2021. So to get yourself familiar, so there are, I think the big circle here is about operating expenditure. And then within operating expenditure, these are the item of the budget overall, okay, when you look at government as a whole. So you can see clearly that salary takes the big chunk of it. Then they also call it charge and grants. So you can see the word grants there. So these are the distribution to statutory bodies or any form of grants that is given to companies sometime. Okay, you get there are incentives for government to provide or to promote certain industry. Okay, they provide grants. And then supplies and services. Okay, part of it definitely involve procurements. So 29 billion. And so you can see as well. I think these they combine with development expenditure as well. So on the left, top left there, so the amount of development expenditure. And so I think in total, okay, 259 is operating expenditure with the 54 billion development expenditure. So the total is 314 billion, 314.6. Okay, so you can expect this proportion of the budget. Okay, so it's almost like 30% is the development budget and 70% is like for the operating. Okay, so so 80%. So I think similar pattern you can see in 2018. Okay, get yourself familiar. So even if you look at the development expenditure, they mention okay how much involve economic sector, social security, as well as general admin. Okay, that's one I think definitely for public administration. So big chunk for development as well is under economic sectors. Okay. Right. Now we move to 2021 for the current year budget. This is provided by the Ministry of Finance. So we can see the source of finance, 40% from the direct tax. So I think in total, if you look at tax, is about, but this one is 2021, where there was definitely there is a expected tax reduction. So you can see the source here, direct tax, both direct and indirect, is 50 around 54%. Okay, and then the borrowing. Okay, the borrowing is 26%, and there are also other revenue. Other revenue. Okay, so I would expect borrowing is increasing. Okay, the expectation because of the current scenario with the economic slowdown as well as COVID. So where the money will be spent in 2021? Okay, the total is 322 billion. The total expenditure. Okay, both the I think the one is combined, covering operating as well as development expenditure. Okay, but here they just provide the percentage. Okay, this figure is also provided by Ministry of Finance. So you can see there is a specific COVID-19 budget. So 5.3% out of 32. So it's around what 17 billion. Okay, so specifically allocated for COVID-19. Right, I think COVID-19 related expenditures, possibly including the vaccine and all these test kits, PCR and others, and definitely to support. I think all the frontliners so need support, and there are also a lot of government incentive, financial aids and others. Okay, so should be included under COVID-19 allocation. Right. Other observation you can also see beside emoluments, debt service charges, okay, retirements. Okay, these are kind of fixed charges, isn't it? Not directly. I mean, the related to legacy costs, like retirement charges and debt service, because it's already undertaken. And I think that's mainly. So I mean, this is very broad. Okay, you cannot see for each government agency, but you can look. I mean, for specific ministry and government agency, you have to look at the breakdown reports. Then you can see. Okay, 322 billion to be spent in terms of the overall allocation, covering both development and operating expenditures. Okay, these are some issues last year. I think it's interesting, just in highlight, where there was a risk of Parliament overhang to pass the supply act, the supply bill for 2021. But somehow, I think all members of Parliament were very responsible. Okay, they passed the bill. Okay. I think everybody played their role at that point. Okay, and these are the options in case of if there is Parliament overhang. They cannot pass the bill. Okay, but it. I mean, I think it's quite smooth. Okay, the passing of the bill in both houses, in the House of Representatives as well as House of Senate. Okay, any question? And then we continue with MBS. Okay, there's a question here. Right, is it good budget if the government allocate more to operating than development expenditure? Okay, there's a question here. Is it a good budget, by Brother Firdaus? Is it a good budget if the government allocate more to operate, for operating expenditure as well as more than development expenditure? Okay. 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 Traditionally, no, I think in practice, I think it's based on needs. It's based on needs. Okay, that's one. The other is operating expenditure is reflecting government capacity. Yeah. Okay, so of course, big chunk of that is salary, and so salary is reflecting government capacity to provide the overall services. Okay. Um, okay. Directly, there is no direct answer for that. But I think the most possibly you can, I think from that question, you can also it also can mean that government should allocate in priority areas, okay, important areas. So it means that, of course, during the time of crisis, I think they allocate more in terms of healthcare, in terms of, there's so many financial aid to help those are badly affected, the B40s, okay. And even in the previous class, we discussed on the M40 groups, okay, that should be helped as well. So that's one. And then during the time of the normal time, okay, when post-COVID, post-crisis, right? I think they should spend on priority areas in priority sectors in the most effective way. Okay, so that's in a way we try to answer that by discussing these topics, budgeting techniques. Okay, for you to be able to get to answer your question. All right. So at this point, I'm answering in that way. Okay. Um, okay, partly because of right, because let's say we talk about the big chunk of budget allocation is emolument, for instance. These are, reflecting government civil servants, professionals. A big chunk of that, okay, I think almost 90% of that, or maybe 95% of this salary is basically for at the agency level, as well as for the professionals, okay, for the teachers, doctors, all these, for defense. So really, but if you look at this crisis demonstrate the government efficiency and effectiveness, because we can see clearly how well they manage the crisis, and it is one of the best in the globally. Okay, that's one. Of course, at the same time, we are blessed with the Malaysian. Okay, by Malaysians, because of maybe definitely level of education, commitment, discipline that they have. Okay, we did not face the problem that even faced by developed countries. Okay, by the European countries. Okay, so as a country as a whole. I mean, it also happened in other countries. I'm not saying, but I think Malaysia definitely one of the good example. Okay, so I think hopefully by completing this course, right, and particularly the first 6 weeks, you, Brother Fidaus, you'll be able to understand this better. Or maybe I will explain from time to time. Okay. And I think if we understand the mechanisms that government is how the government works, then can that partly, if not fully or partly, can answer your question. Okay. All right. Good question. I'll move on. Right now, we move to MBS. Okay, I think the question you can continue. You can just put in the chat. And from time to time, we one section that I will just answer. Okay. Now we move on. We look at MBS, modified budgeting systems. Okay. So after program-based budgeting, so Malaysian government moved to modified budgeting system. Was introduced in 1988. Why it is discussed now? Okay, I think you understand the development. So this is also part of the development of this program, of this budgeting. Right, and then if you look at the bottom there, it focuses the relationships between input, output, and impact of the programs. Okay, so that will be another discussion, another level of discussion on these relationships between all the resources and the impact. Of course, in terms of put it in a simple word, is basically try to improve the impact of what government are doing, okay, in terms of achieving their policy, okay, and how each government agency can contribute, okay. I think that's the main focus. And of course, sometimes this can be what happened nowadays during the crisis can overshadow what all government agencies are doing. Why I'm saying that, because nowadays, because of the crisis time, there are a lot of direct financial aid given to Malaysians, to citizens. Okay, I think everybody receive money, like from Penjana or from there are some financial schemes. So that is directly provided by Ministry of Finance through either banks owned by the government or by the Inland Revenue. Okay, but these are financial aid because of crisis. But definitely, I think how to evaluate that, you can also because I think in terms of efficiency of distribution. This time, okay, not much complaint on, okay, that the money not received by the target recipients. Okay, so you can see that the effect of all this technology, online payments and all that, so the payment can be given or can be made directly to the target recipients. So they're not channeled through, middle level, either agencies or management. Okay, they can be directly paid to the target recipients. Okay, that's also demonstrate okay, how the effectiveness of efficiency of the government using mobilizing or leveraging with the technology, right? And now, of course, the payment system and others will improve how things are being done. And okay, but anyway, but when we focus on at the services that should be provided by the government entities, okay, nowadays I think more visible is the healthcare, okay, because of COVID, and the other is the security, yeah, okay, how they control the movement control and others. I think these are quite visible to general Malaysian, right? But even including ourselves. But other services which is hidden from our life, okay, in terms of economic activities, okay, in terms of all regulations that we benefit every time, okay, like education, for instance, the quality of education. So all these have been basically monitored and regulated rigorously, okay. So and then of course, based on those framework, the allocation is provided. And only that in the case of MBS, okay, it's starting from 1988 and more, the effect definitely until now, because that time they give more emphasis on there are certain features in modified budgeting system that can support this, enhance the relationship between the the resources allocated to the government agencies and what they're supposed to achieve. Okay, and these are being measured so that there is an improvement in the accountability of the civil servants, particularly the controlling officers. Okay, so you can see that these terms have been highlighted: efficient, effective. Okay, relationship between output and input is basically reflecting efficiency. Okay, outcome and output reflecting effectiveness, right? So outcome here is more on achieving policy, okay? Whereas output is something quite manageable by government agencies. Okay, so they must provide relevant output, okay, relevant services, let's say in the case of our university, definitely education, okay, program, accounting programs, or whatever program that we have in the university. Yeah, okay. The fact that I think we introduce, let's say, KICT. Yeah, I think one of the youngest faculty is Kuliah of ICT. Kuliah of ICT is basically an offshoot of our Kuliah of Economics. Okay, it started from this Kuliah, okay, as a program. I think it started as a course. From course, it translated into a program, a degree program, okay. And then from degree program was upgraded to a department, okay, to a department. Just like nowadays, we have a department of business, department of accounting. So from that department, it is upgraded to faculty. Okay, so you must remember all these activities. Okay, like last time we mentioned about program-based budgeting. So because budget is provided up to the level of program. Okay, sub-activities. Okay, let's say to introduce this ICT degree or accounting degree, we need lecturers. So there must be budget for it. These are at the very low sub-activities within a program. Okay, so that's how budget is being allocated. Right. So and definitely, okay, I think you can bring in the understanding of program. So every program or every government agency, they must have output. But of course, the output must be relevant. So with that, they can achieve the outcome. So that's basically to achieve effectiveness. Right. So how this being translated into operation when MBS is introduced? Okay. Of course, in principle, this is what they want to achieve, the objective. Okay, to improve efficiency and effectiveness. But how they translate that into practice? Okay. So that's something that you need to appreciate. So MBS as a management system. Okay, so look at objective to improve allocation of resources. I think quite consistent from one technique to another, or one improvement to another, and reform from one budget reform to another. Still, the main is to improve allocation of resources, to improve effectiveness and efficiency of government program activities. Okay, this one is a bit more visible. Okay, in the case of MBS. Okay, to achieve efficiency and effectiveness. I think if you look at this objective number 2, it's like private sector, isn't it? Okay, I want to achieve profit, maximizing profit. Okay, in the case of possibly CEO or accountants, when helping the organization. But for investors' perspective, definitely to increase the value of the firm. Okay, to maximize the shareholders' value, or the value of the company as a whole, right? So that will be the aim, right? But in the case of government organizations, so they make it categorically clear to improve efficiency and effectiveness, or in other words, to improve value for money. Okay, with economy. So that's number 2. Okay, so sometimes what you need to appreciate is, okay, it's easy to put aim and objective, but how to translate those aim and objective into practice, so that all these resources being utilized and mobilized to achieve those. Okay, can meet this expectation of efficiency and effectiveness. I think that's basically the role of accountants. Definitely is crucial. Because accountants have that understanding of relationships between what contribute to achieve, to maximize the value of the company, to maximize the profit. So if you use the same logic, you can use this to the company, to the government entity. Okay. Thirdly, to strengthen mechanism for accountability of controlling officers, emphasizing on result-based management, right? So it says here what it means. Accountability need to be strengthened, okay, with the introduction of MBS. But in what way? Sometimes it's easy to say improve, to strengthen, to make it stronger. So the understanding here is to make it stronger, the accountability of the controlling officers, by make him or make her accountable for results. Okay, for results. So in other words, the results. Result here also means effectiveness and efficiency, because these are results. Okay, result measures. So they're accountable for that. they must achieve. Okay, that's one. Another way to look at it is this basically also reflecting a change of practice in the government, okay, in the government agency, where previous performance measure or performance criteria for the government agencies is basically is financial performance. Okay, what does it mean by financial performance? Is utilizing all the budget. Okay, because budget utilization is reflecting the quality of planning. Okay, so you try to understand these logics. Okay, but nevertheless, because of the changes and the demand of the public, okay, that changes that are required for the government because to match the economic development, the social development in the country. So focusing on financial performance alone is not sufficient. Okay, the government agency just cannot tell, okay, I'm very successful this year because I managed to utilize all the budget. That's no longer relevant at this point when MBS is introduced. Okay, so they need more concrete answer. Okay, if you say you achieve results, so what will be your results? Okay, so that's why more quantification in government agencies happening. Okay, okay, I think it's commensurate that time with the introduction of the reform program that contain performance measurement techniques. At the same time, the demand that is the pressure that take place, okay, by the stakeholders in the country that basically push the government move forward to improve that their controlling officers need to be answerable for what they are doing, okay, and to show that they are becoming more efficient and effective. Okay. Right, and partly also introduction of program-based MBS is because to address the weaknesses of program-based budgeting. I think some of the points that I mentioned just now also related to these weaknesses. Okay, lack of top and line management participation into budgeting process. Okay, so of course, program-based budgeting in principle, okay, in theory, the programming should be there and then it should be participative. Okay, but then what happened in practice that time? So lack of top and line management participation into budgeting process. Okay, so basically budgeting to propose the budget is handled by mainly by the administration director of admin. Okay, because admin and management and finance is basically under one director. Okay, and sometimes hardly also there are accountants with the professional position in government agency that time. I think even until now, okay, the need for accountants, I think should always be the priority of AG. Okay, it's just that I think for the new recruitments can be challenging. Okay, because there is also overall government policy that they try to minimize, try to maintain the size of public service. Okay, because the public service in general is very big. Okay, it's the biggest employer in the country. Yeah, so but it doesn't mean that we also don't need to hire more people to serve in the government. I think it's wrong as well. I think what happened during COVID, and then people realize there is no sufficient numbers of doctors as well as medical staff. Okay, that is basically faced by the country. I think there was a slowdown of recruitments, maybe for the past 5 years. Okay, for some reason, maybe give priorities to other areas. And then when COVID happened, so there is a challenge. Okay, that we need more doctors, we need more staff in medical areas. Okay, in healthcare. Okay, so that's why planning, sometimes it's not as simple as if the government size is so big, so try to cut down because the demand of the public is keep on increasing. That's one. But at the same time, civil servants should be very professional and very effective. Okay, they try to upgrade themselves. It's no longer the old culture. I think gradually, definitely, this will be entirely replaced with the new groups of civil servants. Okay, secondly, widespread of incremental budgeting. Okay, I think these are basically results of because of the first point. when there is a lack of top and line management participation in the budgeting, so the budget become incremental budget. So line item budgeting become still dominant. Okay, so you can see the person in charge. Third, financial autonomy for effective decision makings. So what happened is, of course, there are programming-based budgeting, but in terms of spending, it become like line item budgeting. So they can only spend salary only for salary. Okay, they cannot via. So very limited autonomy. Okay, and then also there is a level of authorization from Director General in the central office, which is in KL mostly, and the branch office scattered throughout the country. These are the officers basically providing the service to the target groups. Okay, if you look at Kelantan, Terengganu, Penang, okay, Johor, so all these are they're headed by respective directors, Sabah, Sarawak. Okay, but if with the limited financial autonomy, it can slow down the decision making. Okay, so every time if you want to buy something, you always need approval from the Director General or the CEO or Executive Directors of state, at the level of state or at the level of federal. Then it can slow down service provision. Okay, these are some dimensions why they mention limited financial autonomy. The practice of gaming by spending organizations. So gaming here means budgetary slack. I think you can. I think this also covered in the other management accounting topics. Okay, gaming. Okay, I think the idea is that they try to avoid a massive budget cut from their budget proposal. Okay. Right, program-based budgeting was not used as a management tool to achieve value for money. Distinct dichotomy between financial management and operational matters. I think these are partly also can be explained through the fact that line managers and top management are not involved directly in the budgeting process. Okay, so it led to separation between financial management and operational matters. Whereas good practice is this should be embedded together. Okay, so to address the problems of program-based budgeting, it also introduced MBS introduced certain reform mechanisms. If you look at here, let managers manage principle, in line with the spirit of freedom to manage to line managers. So in other words, give more financial and operational freedoms to line managers, okay, and give them more authority to use the public money, okay, of course in line within the process and procedures of government. Secondly, focus on result-based performance measurement and accountability. Okay, so there need to be developed. Okay, result-based performance measurement. So I think you can also see that result-based performance measurement is coupled with accountability. Okay, of course, result-based performance measurement is being quantified, and then with that should be reported. Okay, I think that's how accountability should be improved. And with that also they have contract and accountable management via program agreement. Okay, they also bring in the idea of accountable management. I think this accountable management, the first idea was the idea is being introduced in developed countries, okay, like in the UK, okay, in European countries. And then this was, I think basically this MBS, Malaysian, we learn it from Australia, okay. So I think the Treasury, they send their staff officers to be trained in Australia to introduce this in Malaysian government. Okay, I think they also learn from, I think in terms of budget, beside the US, Australia, I think the European countries as well, and definitely the Commonwealth countries. Okay, we are the member of a Commonwealth Association of Commonwealth countries. This is also a source of knowledge sharing. Definitely, I think in terms of overall push to change, okay, reports from World Bank, all these give pressure to the government to move forward. And lastly, if you look at this, MBS, they also introduce fiscal control, okay, via expenditure target. Okay, so in other words, they translate fiscal control that was promoted by the World Bank into expenditure target. Expenditure target for each program. So in other words, there is a expenditure limit that they must plan within that limit. Okay, so we'll see later on. Right, if you look at this, let's manager manage principle. Okay, in terms of course, this is in terms of as an idea of to let managers manage, right? In other words, you must remember the rationale behind to let managers manage. One requirement is the managers must be very competent. Okay, that's one. The other, of course, managers here is basically mainly operational managers, where they handle the needs of the target customers, just like in private sector, similar. Okay, and nowadays, if you look at, because of the changing of environment, the changing of the technology, and then with all this social media, and then the way the business are doing, okay, nowadays, even we have the payment system is changing, okay, through digital payment system. There are lots, so many that organizations must embrace. I think at the professional level, okay, in accounting, professional accounting body, they promote these the organizations need to be agile, okay, agility of organizations. I think they also promote agility of us, okay, as professionals, okay, how we can respond to all these changes. I think the ability to respond to changes, I think that's the key, okay. So one of the ways to do that is basically for enhancing this let's managers manage policy. But as I said, it's not for managers who are weak. These are managers who are excellent, who are very creative. Okay, they know their jobs. They know what they're doing. They can bring in so many knowledge and feedbacks. They can respond to the markets well. They can respond to the demands of the stakeholders well. These are kind of managers that can somehow contribute to the success of when this principle can be applied. Okay, and so if you look at this devolution of authority, okay, so with that, how they translate let's manager manage principle, okay, to the practice is basically devolution of authority. What it means, greater flexibility to line managers to manage allocated resources in service delivery. So in other words, they can decide, okay, what service they need to provide and what budget need to be provided for that, okay. And accountability to match greater budget authority, okay. So that's why if you look at, it's like two sides of the same coin. They give you more flexibility, okay, but instead of controlling, it's like micromanage, from moving from micromanage to macromanage, okay. So instead of focusing, controlling what you're doing in details, but just focus, you can do whatever you like, right, as long as you achieve the results, okay. I think that's the focus of the accountability, okay. Just like yourself, isn't it? If you are given, like your parents, okay, in the beginning of the semester, they just say to you, okay, I give you this amount of money every semester or every month, but at the end of the semester, I want you to get a CGPA. Okay, give example. What CGPA to achieve? Class. What CGPA you or one student should achieve? Anyone?
Above 3.
Above 3. Okay. Can you be specific? Give one figure. Give one figure.
3.99.
Okay. 3.99. Okay. All right. So 3.99 CGPA is results. Okay. Is results. Right. So what it means is basically I give you money, right? But at the end of the semester, you must achieve 3.99. How you do it, how you're going to do it, okay, is up to you. Entirely up to you to plan, and we will support. Okay, so similar idea that when we talk about accountability to match greater budget authority, or in other words, they also said the changing of accountability to result-based accountability. So They give you flexibility, so they don't want to control you on the details, but they hold you accountable at the results. Okay, that's, I mean, in the sense, you give more trust to the managers, okay, to perform. That's why, I'm saying, okay, you give more trust to the managers. It means you basically they are competent, they can deliver. Okay, so the system must provide that dimension. I think in a way, okay, I think it works well. Okay, it works well. Um, uh, this organization, but it's just that later on we discuss the limitations. Okay, share of accountability to mainly input and process to mainly output and outcome-based performance. So with MBS, when the government's agencies, if they ask how well you performed previous year, so they can, by right, they can no longer say, yeah, we are very successful because we utilize all the budget. That's no longer a way of expressing their performance. Okay, what they must say is, yeah, we are successful because we, let's say in the case of public JPJ, yeah, okay, public JPJ. What is JPJ in English? Public Transport Department, PTD. Okay. One of the aim, let's say for the PTD, is to reduce number of accidents. Okay, road accidents. Okay, that is result, isn't it? Okay, so they, let's say they reduce the road accident by 10%. Okay, so the numbers of accident is basically the results. So instead of saying, okay, we managed to fully utilize all our budget, so now they will say, our performance is good because we managed to reduce the number of road accidents by 10%. Okay, so that will be the way to express their performance. That is result based. Okay, and of course the mainly output. I think output is quite easy. Okay, okay. I think output, maybe they will say okay, number of roadblocks and others. Okay, sometimes it's not easy, for the government, because they are enforcement groups, to tell the difference between, is it output or is it a process, performance measures. Okay, but nevertheless they should support the results. Okay, that is the idea, okay, with this principle of MBS, should lead to greater use of output and outcome-based performance indicators. Okay, because sometimes it's not easy to assign outcome at the agency level, but outcome is more at the government as a whole, and also at the parliament. So between parliament and the controlling officers, okay, at that level, between parliament and the ministry, and parliament maybe between ministers to the general public. Okay, that then they can focus on policy outcome. Okay, I think outcome generally laid out in the policy. Yeah? Whereas output is supported by various government agencies. Okay, so I think this issue somehow been discussed, okay, but of course, I mean, in layman terms, sometimes these are being taken, they accept this as part of the discourse, the narrative, okay. But in any case, to clearly support this initiative, there must be concrete performance measures, okay, that can be the control officers and their subordinates can be held accountable and then be reported. Okay, so that is the development that should take place. Okay. Right. Now we move on. A comparison between program-based budgeting. Okay. The elements. I think it's continuation of program-based budgeting. The programming is still there. Okay. Performance evaluation and others. On top of that, there is expenditure target, program agreement, and then cycle performance evaluation. I think this is quite similar with the program-based budgeting. And then a more generalized approach to expenditure control. Okay, so these are basically contradict the line item budgeting. Line item budgeting, where the control is at line item, whereas under MBS it's more flexible, so more environments can be undertaken. Okay, that flexibility is provided. Right, expenditure target as part of fiscal control. Okay, so you can see, of course, expenditure target at the agency level or at the controlling officers, but this mechanism is part of MBS, but it can be traced as part of a global trend, okay, which is basically fiscal control introduced by the World Bank. So you can see this sharing of knowledge and information. So it will provide a base amount, a ceiling, okay, for each program, fixed by the Treasury at the beginning of the budgeting process for ongoing program, okay, not for new program but for ongoing program. So cannot be exceeded when preparing the budget. Okay, so in other words, it's like it's just like your parents. They say, okay, generally how much you receive allocation every month for scholar as well as or from your parents. 500, 1,000, 300. Give one example, class.
1,000.
Okay, 1,000 I think too much. Let's say 500, okay? I mean, to be fair, okay? So what they are saying, okay, what they said is basically, okay, just like I give you 500, okay, so you plan for it, but never plan more than 500, okay? So if you plan more than 500, I won't entertain for your existing program, for your existing activities. Okay, you can revise whatever the approach and others, but when you plan the budget, must be 500. Okay, that's what it is, right? I think in that sense, I think they can improve the element how they approach the programs or the activities, but in terms of budget, they provide ceiling already. Okay, so in other words, in terms of amount, won't be subjected to disputes, because if you remember, they need to discuss with BR, budget review officer and others. Okay, in a way that they will, this also will facilitate the budgeting process. Okay, and as a way to control the budget as well. Okay, so these are how they arrive with the expenditure target. Okay, so the existing policy, there is an increment as well, and 1% efficiency dividend. And these are the formula given. So if you look at one-off, I think one-off means one-off. Won't be repeated in the future. Non-recurring activities. Okay, general election, okay, moving to new office renovation is an example, if that can be classified under operating budget. Right, so on top of that, there is a total allocation. So there is allocation for existing program, and there also allocation for new program. So this new program, there can be a new policy or one-off. So if you look at that, new policy is new activities within program to be implemented by agencies. This is just like introducing new products, that the product will be sold. Okay, so one is being introduced, it will be sold, in the future. Okay, similarly in the case of government, okay, when they introduce new services, okay, let's say in the case of university, we introduce new program, let's say Islamic finance or ICT. Maybe definitely recent time is like a pharmacy and others. Okay, these are new policies that will continue. So every year, government will provide the budget. Okay, and if they request the budget, it's already part of the approved activities already. Okay, whereas another is a one-off. So one-off means only one time, only for that year. It's not recurring. So that will be added as well. And on top of that, there must be saving. So this saving is basically to encourage the government agencies, if they want to propose the budget, they also must consider saving, if they can save, right? So the BRO, if they review, they found that there is ways to save, then the budget will be removed from the budget application. Okay. Right, these are total allocation. If you look at the last point, in the event saving proposals are made by operating agencies, a certain amount of saving can be retained. However, if saving proposals are made by the Treasury, the agency will lose all of the savings. Okay, so I think that's why the person handling the budget is important for them to have that knowledge. What is standard cost? How much it costs? It must be reasonable. Okay. I think another way that to look at it is basically, because at the treasury level, they can compare across government agencies. If similar level of services, if similar type of organization, then their cost, their budget should be comparable. Okay, so this also can trigger questions or review. Right. So with the MBS, right, as because part of it is to improve, give more flexibility to managers. They also need to improve the accountability. Yeah. So how they translate this result-based accountability, they introduce program agreement. Okay. So program agreement. Look carefully. Yeah. Program agreement specify the level of achievement of funds allocated for a particular program and activity. Mechanism to match accountability with greater budget authority. Okay, if you look at the third one, a contract document between controlling officers and the treasury. Okay, so it's like a contract, a performance contract. I think performance contract is introduced even in the private sector settings, where the CEO have that performance contract, okay, with the organization. Okay, so almost the same, because in that there is KPIs and others that what the control the CEO need to achieve. So similarly in this case, okay, similar setting, but in this case it's controlling officers and the treasury. Okay, why the treasury? Because MBS is the product of the treasury. They initiate, so they want the control officer to be held accountable for the budget allocation, right? So think about it. Okay, the performance agreement concepts, treasury as an upper level, increase accountability for output and outcomes. I think that's basically because of the elements of the program agreement, and definitely is part of MBS as well, and increase budget flexibility. These are examples. I think in the textbook also they provide. So here is the item in the program agreement, just like contracts. Okay, the purpose, okay, the agency, public works, the program, road and bridges. So in other words, the program should be provided budget. Okay, so within program there must be so many activities. So in this example, program agreement, the activities is maintenance, road maintenance services. I think you can see this from time to time where the public roads. If you look at the roads, the public roads, there are roads under the care of the federal government. There are also under the care of a state government as well as local government. But here I think we focus on, because MBS is under federal government, okay, so this will be for the federal road. Source of authority, okay, so where they get their mandate. Objective to ensure federal roads and bridges are constantly maintained. Okay, right. In program agreement number 8, what did you see in number 8, class? What did you see in number 8? Exactly. Okay, the word customer is in program agreement. All right. So that's why when I say that government have customers, okay, government agency have customers. So maybe sometime we may take it for granted. Generally, customers, for private sector profit making, when they serve their customers well. But in the government, okay, this word also used. Okay, this concept is also used as part of public sector. This even been written, been part of program agreement. Okay, so the customers are the road users. But you can see how road users pay for the services. Okay, if it is a toll-based road, then you can see road users paying the toll. But other federal roads, okay, so you can see that customer here in the case of government a bit different. They may not be the payer of the services, okay, but they become the target groups where the government agency should serve them. Okay, so I think very specific. I think in terms of how you translate it into good management, it is good practice. Okay, if you have a target customers, then it's very clear, because customers, when you want to argue, customers are always right. So who are in whose perspective? In this case, the road users. Okay. Policy needs analysis. Road need to be maintained and functions. These are the work, the scope of works. Okay, on top of that, resources. Okay, so the source. If you can look at this as a budget, general objects and others. And in the program agreement is also mentioned about the output. Okay, these are output performance measure. Okay, here these are at least four items here. Quantity as quality, timeliness. So time is also taken into account, and unit cost. Okay, unit cost is basically efficiency measure. So unit cost is part of the performance measure. So we must remember this unit cost is based on accrual accounting. Even that time when government introduced this, okay, the kind of accounting system is mainly cash-based accounting. Okay, but the requirements under MBS, the unit cost should be measured at the accrual base. So I think one of the response by the AG, Accountants General, when they introduced this MBS, they also introduced an accounting system for government agencies. They call it micro accounting system, where basically to help the government to compute this unit cost. Okay, it's like it's a costing system. Okay, it's a costing system. It initially was done manually. I think they moved to a computerized system. Okay, of course, up to that point, now I think they are all very busy moving towards activity-based costing, right? But nevertheless, the requirements of unit cost has been introduced for government agencies, so it's needed. Not only that, then they also required to prepare impact indicator. So the impact indicator here, decline in the rate of complaint by road users. Okay, one indicator. Another indicator, performance measure. Decline in rate of road accidents. Okay. I think in the case of road accidents, it's very complicated performance measure because road accidents, there are multiple agencies involved. Okay, there are multiple factors. Okay, and sometimes if you look in news, the easy target to who should be held responsible is always the road users. Okay, and maybe only the recently when there was one of the ministers basically fell from his bicycle, isn't it? And then he become a national news. Whose is that?
Khairi
Clara?
Jamaluddin.
Yes, and then suddenly potholes on the road become an issue, become a national issue, right? I'm not sure. Okay, do they? But of course, the next question will be when he fell. So that road is whose road is that? Is that a federal road? Is that a state road? Is that road managed by the local government? Okay, but not clearly mentioned in the news, right? Okay, anyway, but it's interesting. But the good part is that they respond. So, and the media also play a role where I think government agencies need to be equitable on how they respond to all these complaints, because then the rest are showing pictures that they also fell from the road, isn't it? Because of the potholes. Okay, so interesting. Right, and with that also they have a program evaluation. So you must remember all these are items that been mentioned and specified in the contract. I think you understand contract, isn't it? Do you understand contract? Contract. You know, in real life, if you enter into a contract, by right, if you enter into a contract, if any party of the contract default, so the contracting party can what? What is the option? If they are not satisfied with the performance of
Sue.
the counterparty, they can
Sue.
sue in the court of law. Okay, that is the contract. But here is a program agreement. I think maybe that's the reason they don't use the word agreement contracts. They use program agreement. Okay, but it's a agreement between two parties. But agreement itself is a very strong word. So these are the items within the performance agreement, and but between the treasury and the controlling officers. Okay, between the treasury and the controlling officers, because there are also another performance requirements. Because due to quality-based reforms, like ISO, I mean, almost the same time it's happening as well. ISO and then TQM that time. total quality management. But these are basically the other reform programs by the MAMPU, by the modernization unit under the JPM, under the Prime Minister Office. Okay, so that reforms is part of their performance assessment. Okay, whereas for this, I think the control given by the Treasury is basically they can assess and they can basically negotiate on the level to disburse the money, the money and also the fund to the respective controlling officers. Okay, because some that definitely warrants are annually, okay, but if the agency is receiving cash, okay, like statutory bodies, okay, the Treasury also have that control of dispersing the cash, okay, depending on the performance, the progress of the performance. If they don't achieve the performance targets, they have to prepare exception report, okay. So you can see that it's also annually. And the cycle of programs, okay, that is on the program agreement. So we move on to cycle of program evaluation. I think we discussed that. I think it's almost similar to program-based budgeting, okay, to make sure that the services are relevant. All right, now we move on to the more generalized approach to expenditure control. Okay, I think we discussed the word environment. Okay, greater flexibility given to managers throughout the organizations and particularly to operational management level. The flexibility usually relates to decision regarding how resources are to be given or allocated to various programs. So I think in the case of MBS, it allows, because if you talk about land managers can also managers at the ministry level. Because managers, operational managers, they are the head or the director of certain activities. That's why I think in the operation, the government, okay, let's say the branch office, they can be accountable to the state director. They also have to be accountable to the director at the HQ level. Okay, so it's like a dual accountability. So of course, I mean, maybe they are different. They can support with the different set of performance measures, right? So if it is even because you talk about resource allocation, then they can decide, okay, what are the resources to be allocated for each program. So based on management priorities, I think this trigger. MBS allows that management start to have their own management priorities based on their strategic initiative. I think during this time also strategic management also becoming more important in government. And I think in that sense also it also can address the problem of where, you know, in the previous budgeting weaknesses of where the top management and line managers, they're not involved in the budgeting process. So MBS, because of this flexibility, and then they can there is a least likely that their budget will be cut. So the management have more they come back to the table for them to plan, and they get directly involved in the budgeting process. Okay. Right. I think this can read this. Right. Maybe I just show. These are easier to understand. Okay. And the program based, and then with MBS, more flexibility. If you look at under the program based budgeting, it's limited to general objects 20,000 and 30,000. Whereas in the case of MBS, they can via across programs. Okay. I think they can via across objects, definitely object of expenditures, but between, and they can also via between activities. But once they want to via across program, they just need to notify the Treasury, okay, the Treasury. But otherwise, controlling officers also, they can play a role to help on the environment at the ministry level before they go for approval from the Treasury. Right, overall benefits of MBS, you can read this, greater involvement of top management. These are the details in the budgeting process. So if you look at the last point, integrating operational and financial matters. Okay, and then greater participation of line managers. Then you can see that government services becoming more relevant to the citizens, to the public sector, to the public. Okay, more qualities in their provisions of services, because the line managers can provide the inputs directly in the budgeting process. Okay, I think maybe people like you may not be aware of this, because I think because all of you born in 1990, in 2000, isn't it? You were
98,
born in
sir.
1998. Yeah, you born in 1998. That time, I think our government services are relatively very good. Okay, as opposed to 80s, early 90s. Okay, and so I think from that point, all these basically a lot of improvement is taken to is already made. Right, and then okay, minimize budgetary slacks. So it's also possible with the expenditure target. Right, and the problems, the MBS did not address the following financial management problems: annuality, shortfall of allocation. I think annuality means you must be aware that government budget cannot be carried forward, because they just receive warrants. Warrants is authority to pay, but they don't receive money in their pockets. That's why they cannot carry forward. Okay, and in the case for government agencies, we receive cash, okay, grants and study bodies. That's why the Treasury also control the level of cash that is dispersed to respective government agencies based on their progress of utilization. Because expenditure nowadays definitely online. Before you always updated monthly expenditure report. Okay, it's required by the Treasury to be updated monthly, but now it's online. I mean they can check online. So so you need to I think appreciate annuality. Okay, because I think one of the way to address annuality also, I think the budget is provided for 2 years to improve that, to make it the preparation of the budget become a bit smooth. Another delay in distribution of allocation. I think warrants, once they're received by controlling officers, they also have to redistribute to various officers across the agencies. Okay, at the federal level as well as at the state level, because at the state also there are federal government officers, okay, that need to receive all these allocations. So they need to redistribute all these warrants. Okay. And so you can see lack of integration between development and operating expenditures to form coherent budgeting system. The principle that management is not fully supported. Okay. Right, and another problem is weaknesses of program agreement as accountability mechanism. Lack of support from top management of spending organizations as no effective monitoring system to achieve the performance targets. Okay, so take that. Blame on the Treasury officials' failure to enforce the performance requirements. Okay, and then the BRO say the information lack of reliability. Okay, that's why BRO, I think they are more comfortable with looking at the past year spending instead of looking at the performance measure, the achievement of the result-based performance measure. Lastly, performance target not part of performance and promotional assessment of controlling officers and their representative. Okay, that's also inherent weaknesses in the system. Because at that point, because the Treasury, because promotion is under the Prime Minister office and under Public Service Commissions, in Treasury it's not directly part of that. Okay, so that somehow contribute the weaknesses in the program agreement. I think that's why later we see outcome-based budgeting. That's why there was a big change where the performance target under outcome-based budgeting is not only by the Treasury but the Prime Minister itself directly involved in that initiative. Okay. And okay, so look at this because MBS have that characteristics of new public management. MBS places special emphasis on spending limit and then outcome and output-based performance measures. Okay, so take note of this. Then new public management also encourage on delegation of authorities. Okay, that's also very consistent with MBS. Okay, together with the result-based performance measures. Right. I think that's about it. Any question? I think with regards to this outcome-based budgeting, all right? Okay, any question? Oh, all right, there is a question here. Oh, okay. By Kairina, sir, what does it mean by Malaysia should focus more on high value added activities rather than focusing on economic activities? Oh, okay, good question. Okay. Because I understand high value added and focusing economic activities. Is it in the slide? Let me just check. Karina, is it in the slide or? Oh, Emma.
Sir, the one with Prof. Norma Manso.
Oh, okay. All right, that's good. Okay, I think I did explain in the previous class. Actually, if you look at the third point there, to consider value-added activities. I think what happened is Malaysia should focus on the high value-added activities. Okay. In other words, focusing like on advanced technology, economic activities that can generate high income. Okay. I think that should be the focus. That's why I think if you look at developed countries, they focus on high technology type of activities. Okay, of course nowadays you talk about artificial intelligence. It's like Tesla, for instance. Okay, yeah, that kind of activities. And if you look at in the UK, for instance, they focus on technology for like let's say engine plane engine. Okay, I think like Rolls-Royce. Okay, I think that's the only manufacturer in the world that can produce plane engine is Rolls-Royce. Okay, and there are two basically plane makers in the US. Okay, Boeing, and then the second one is in the Europe. In Europe, it's basically what's the other plane maker? Boeing in US, and the other one is class Airbus. Airbus. Okay, these two, but the engine is always Rolls-Royce. Okay, and Rolls-Royce is basically in the UK. So these are high value added. What do you call it? Activities. Okay. I think Singapore also, and even in Malaysia, you can see. In Malaysia, if you look at Penang, for instance, Penang are focusing more on high value economic activities. Okay, with their all the factories. Okay, they manage to attract technology-based factories. Okay, so that basically they can offer very high salary as well. Okay, so that should be the dimension, and rather than focusing on low level type of economic activities. I mean low income type level of activities. I mean do not take my word directly or interpret that. Try to understand that a bit more when you look at. I think obviously if you look at economic sectors, even during this pandemic, okay, and then when now we are moving to economic recovery, because with the vaccination and all, so you can see that investors quickly move their money to the sectors where it can promise better returns. Okay. Technology based, and also those that can support fast recovery, okay, like finance and others. Okay, so these are the areas. that and but even if you look at agriculture can also provide a high level of high income, but the way things have been developed, okay, the way that need to be improved. These are the areas of that as a policy maker, as well as the industry players, okay, and definitely the labor market as well need to support this, okay. I think yeah, partly to answer that question. Okay, another question. Are accountants considered to be in value-added activities? Oh, okay. What do you think? What do you think? Yes or no, Brother Harris? Okay. Yes.
I don't think so, based on your explanation just now, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Okay. Good answer. I think you can get involved in value added if we keep ourselves updated, okay, with our skills and competencies. Now, I think the payment system, get used to all this digital payment system. This one, and then upgrade it yourself with, keep yourself updated with the technology. I think the profession is basically responding to these changes with this internet, 5G, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. Okay, so you need to keep yourself updated so that you can, because in terms of reporting, okay, in terms of accountability, I think no one can steal at this point. The market, I don't think they still, I think even through regulation, accountants still hold that position globally, okay, because of that knowledge and expertise. At the end, you have to pass judgment. That's one. The other, of course, at the organization level, okay, to provide information, relevant information. So yeah, you need to keep yourself updated, and then once you become relevant, definitely. I mean, it's range, isn't it? Accountants, more knowledgeable and more experienced, okay, and then can provide solutions. Yeah, why not? Okay, they can demand good, yeah. Right. So the key is, I don't think that this can be a general statement, because if you look at even in the case of artificial intelligence, people start talking about it because if you look at the finance, the banking, so big chunk of that banking activities is basically now translated into digital, isn't it? Okay, so now counter-based services in banks becoming less and less relevant. Okay, people just use online banking, right? But areas where requires judgment, okay, I think this is not easy for the AI to compete, okay, and definitely areas where protected by the regulation. These also areas where, okay, somehow, okay, you never know the future, but I think, yeah, people are very creative. I think they can respond, right? So become one. Right, Brother Harris? Or you can have your answer. Maybe your answer is much better than I can provide. Because my knowledge is so very limited. Now things are changing very fast. Okay, I have to understand all this as well, to be able to, yeah. Maybe whatever I said also for you is outdated already. I don't know. Okay.
All right, sir.
Good
Thank you.
question. Yes. Or you want to comment?
No. I just said thank you.
All right. Okay. Another question? Okay. If not, then okay. So I end this. Right, just one quick note with regards to your assignment, because I received a post was asked in the previous one of the groups. Okay, I think with regards to the presentation, yes, I think I did mention when I explained the assignment. But I think one quick, easy to understand is I do value creativity. Okay. And your PowerPoints and your assignment, your video shouldn't be the same. Shouldn't be reading of your PowerPoints. I think that's the main one to avoid. Okay, so with that, I end with wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.